Okay, thank you so much. We are gonna now start with the first roundtable, and I wanna welcome you on the stage, Marta Thorne, who's gonna be our moderator. She's the former executive director of the Pritzker Architecture Prize and currently director at the Gallery Institute in Madrid.
Hello. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for coming back after lunch. This is the worst time to have a roundtable. Could I invite the speakers for the roundtable to join me? We have several people who are from the public sector. Mr. Tarakawa, could you join us? Maria Buigues, are you here? Could you join us? Alessandra Labas. Hi, nice to see you. Reggie Ramos. Sharon, okay, Sharon Ramos. Okay, and Andrea Gordini. Yep, do we have everyone? Great. Yeah. And if I could remind the panelists, the way that we plan to work today is that each person will have 5 to 7 minutes to give their position, remembering that the theme is urban proximity and resilience. The idea is that you give your position. I'm going to be very clear. Do not sell your city. You are not here to sell your city. You are here to give an example of a challenge that you have faced, how you have succeeded, or the difficulties you found in that challenge, because our wonderful audience wants to learn from you what they can apply in their home cities. Remember, you have 5 to 7 minutes. We don't have too much time. I will cut you off at the end of that time. So I want to just thank you again for participating, for being such good sports, and Mr. Takashi Terakawa, who is General Director of Public Works Bureau in Osaka City Government. He is a very interesting person, like all our panelists today. He's worked in the area of management of sewage treatment plants, planning for flood resistance, and he's worked in charge of the development of a riverside promenade. He's also in construction, in the Construction Bureau, promoting road development in the waterfront area, including where Osaka Kansai exhibition will be held. So a real multidisciplinary person with many hats. So please, your 5 to 7 minutes to give us your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Takashi Terakawa, Director General of Osaka City Public Works Bureau. It's a great honor to be able to speak this prestigious conference. Now, let me describe the history and our initiatives for Osaka's Main Street, Midosuji Boulevard. Osaka is Japan's second largest city after Tokyo, and is currently hosting the Osaka Kansai Expo this year. Osaka's Main Street, Midosuji, was a 4-kilometer long, 44-meter wide boulevard, developed 88 years ago in 1937. This Midosuji Boulevard has been developed as a resilient and sustainable street space. Gingo trees have been planted as street trees, and subway lines and public facilities are located underground. it was first developed, the streets were few cars. However, by the 1960s, motorization transformed Midosuji into a car-centric space. Today, within a 44-meter wide, there is a 4-lane main roadway and a 2-lane side road, with a 6-meter wide sidewalk and the street lined with 4 rows of gingo trees. In recent years, traffic conditions of Midosuji Boulevard have seen a 40% decrease in vehicle traffic compared to the peak level of the 1970s. On the other hand, pedestrian traffic has increased 3.5 times, and bicycle traffic has increased 5-fold. Amid on the other hand, pedestrian traffic. Amid global shift toward people-centric streets, we adopt the Midosuji Future Vision at the 80th anniversary, aiming to people-centric full mode conversion. However, since the Midosuji Boulevard still functions as a vehicle traffic artery in the city center, I can't be full converted into a pedestrian mode immediately. So we decided to proceed in steps. The first step is converting the side roads into pedestrian spaces. Pedestrianization of the side road in proceeding from the south, with 1.1 kilometer of the 4 kilometer total length completed by this year. Even this work alone raises the sidewalk share from 27% to 70%. The space for cars has been reversed into the space for people. Based on the Midosuji Future Vision, we are promoting initiatives from 2 major aspects. The first initiative involves gradually reorganizing and developing Midosuji Boulevard into a people-centered space. The second initiative involves transforming the expanded sidewalks into community space for the area and increasing the proximity to the city. The top priority approach for these 2 initiatives is to strengthen resilience to climate change. I will introduce specific efforts we are taking. First, I will present how, during the road space design, we are improving the gingo's growing environment. For this pedestrianization project, we replaced the planting box with large ones for the gingo trees, filled them with specialized soil, and enabled the roots to spread widely. This project will help a tree grow strong, and their tree canopy contributes to heat mitigation, while their strong roots reduce the risk of wind damage. The second initiative, transforming Midosuji into a community space. We have installed parklets as spaces for gathering and interaction with solar panels to supply power to digital signage, lighting fixtures, and live cameras. These initiatives will make a shift from fossil fuel to renewable energies. Even if the power grid is down due to nature disaster, the off-grid function maintains the operation of electronic devices. Power grids serve as disaster response hubs with multiple functions, making them resilient space. The Midosuji area has been designated by the Japanese government as a region to pioneer decarbonization efforts, and the entire area, including surrounding buildings, is working toward decarbonization to close. At the World Expo being held in Osaka, various new technologies contributing to decarbonization are being exhibited, and we can use these. Midosuji is at the forefront of adopting cutting-edge technologies such as these. Osaka City will continue to challenge ourselves of Midosuji and continuing striving to make these initiatives solutions that realize sustainable urban proximity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's very helpful, nature-based design, new types of energy, and reducing carbon. Thank you for those examples. We'll have a question later. Mr. Alexander Lavas, architect and also CEO of Atelier Parisien d'Urbanisme since November 2022. You were also head of the Pavilion de l'Arsenal. So experienced critic, curator, lover of museums, and interpreter of cities. Please give us your 5 to 7 minutes introduction. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your kind invitation. Thank you, Carlos, of course, for this amazing colloque today. It's of course an honor for me to speak today, and especially after the compliments of the Mayor of Paris this morning. I tried to be at the level. APUR is a public urban agency. We make also maps, like the mayor said. We make maps to share with people what's happened. We make maps to think what could be the city tomorrow, and we make also map to explain what happened with the political urban policy. So mostly the mayor have a very strong vision for Paris tomorrow. And she asked us to find two things. The first one is how we can have 10 square meters of green space accessible for each Parisian. Nowadays we have 8.9, so it's like finding 300 hectares in the city of Paris, which is, as you know, an historical city and one of the most dense cities in the world. For us, this challenge is also the challenge to find a place to plant trees. And at the same time, we want to put 150,000 trees in the city of Paris. So where to put the trees, where to find this place. It's very concrete, it's very formal. Jan Gell told that this morning. It's very simple. Just if you want to make proximity, you have to make the place, to design the place for proximity. This is our main challenge nowadays. We arrived to find the place. We arrived to find the 300 hectares. We are nowadays in the way to transform them. We also have to, another challenge for us is how to make soil permeable, 40%. This is another goal of the city of Paris. So where can you find some place to have some more permeable soil? All of this, we make maps. if everybody wants, you can upload this. It's in English. It's free. But we can share like that all the data and all the map of this challenge. You ask us also what are the key challenges for us. That was the first one. The second one is to adapt public space. And to adapt public space with a huge impact is to put car away from the city. You cannot make proximity with car. Jan Gal showed us this morning. So we have to find a place to remove car plus. In the last 5 years, we put off 50,000 parking space in the city. So when you earn this space, of course, you can make other things instead. With the COVID-29, and Carlos said that also, the policy began before the COVID. And with the COVID, it was like a change of scale, a big change of scale. In 5 days, we put 300 rues écoles, like no street without car, with trees sometimes. We also changed like the Rivoli, you may have seen it with the Corona piste, a special place for bicycle. We find 1,000 kilometers of bicycle piste in 5 years, so it's just amazing. And it's possible because society changed. In Paris, 35% of the people have cars only. So all of the people make like mobility by foot or by cycling. We also have a very strong felicitation, I can say, from the public with the vote in March 25, when 69% of the population of Paris asked the mayor to find nowadays 500 new streets for pedestrian way. So it's now our new challenge. It's quite cool. But also it's very important for us because we know nowadays the impact of this strategy. We know the impact with one very particular thing. Everybody saw it, the Olympic Games. During the Olympic Games, there were no cars inside Paris. Everybody was by bicycle or pedestrian. 15% of the part of Paris was no access for car. And the good news is that the nitrogen dioxide minus of 35%. So with proximity, you have LC. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maria Boigues. She is Chief Architect of the City of Barcelona, an architect trained with a Master of City Planning as well. And I have to say she's a friend, so let me tell you one more thing about her. Maria is a risk taker. I have never seen anyone so brave being in the public sphere in Barcelona with a coalition government minority. Her party is in the minority. She is the most brave person I know and gets a lot accomplished. So Maria, tell us something about your challenges besides the political ones and how you're able to navigate the system.
Thank you, Marta, so much for your introduction. Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. I'm going to be speaking in Spanish because that will mean that I will be faster and more concise and precise in what I'm trying to say. So Marta said we cannot sell our cities, so I'm going to try to do that. So essentially, proximity means adaptation of cities. So I come from a city that was not built for cars. Barcelona was not built for cars, but the metropolitan area within which Barcelona is located was built for cars. It grew with cars in mind. So when we need to adapt, we have two key challenges. So climate and housing are two priorities. There are 100 square meters for surface for Barcelona, 1.7 million of inhabitants that has actually grown very fast. So the majority, 96 of this population live in a, I don't know it in minutes, but in meters in any case. They have 5 or 6 services within 500 meters. So 5 or 6 within 500-meter radius. And this means that over half of the population lives in high-density urban areas. So over 200 households per hectare. So 500 inhabitants per hectare. And so that is high intensities, and that's how we can guarantee proximity. So Barcelona's diversity and its spirit that everyone loves is the result of that high intensity. And I'm saying that because what I'm saying is that proximity comes hand in hand with intensity, and not everyone likes that. So I have to make public spaces that are adapted to new climate conditions. And so that means for my city that if I have water, so I have drought issues primarily, but if I have water, that means I'll have green spaces. And because I need shade, then I need green. But where I cannot get water, I need both. So I'm not. So first of all, my objective is permeability, retain water, and I was an explorer beforehand. And so when we talk about all of these things beyond this panel, we don't often have the chance to talk about detail. And so public spaces means changing the ways in which budgets are handed out in the city. It's not all doesn't all have to do with political generosity, indeed. This is all about also internal, in-house policies as well. So in order to make the public spaces that we want to see, we need first instance policies. And we cannot just keep the status quo. We need new spaces. We need new, fresh ideas. So in that idea, we have 20 hectares of new public spaces. What kind? So these are all things, these are like the scraps, people that no one wants from a city. So, no one wants to build on anything's builds. We talk about super blocks, We are not building new, we are building on top of what's already there. And so green acts and mega blocks are created on existing infrastructure, so squares, roads, gardens and parks. So these are public spaces that are in categories. And so what we are analyzing, and I was actually the head of something that Alexander is doing now, and so I have data on how this city is occupied and how it's being used. And there are 100 hectares of non-used spaces in Barcelona, and 20 of those already belong to the city centre. But because they are, let's say, leftovers, scraps, they're sort of here, there and everywhere. They're quite small, and it means a lot of work and a lot of management. But if you add all of this up, what we did was create PEPI. So PEPI is a name, it's like a nickname. And so essentially these spaces, we've wanted to give them that spirit. So just like ordinary spaces that we are going to rehabilitate, we are trying to make them into public spaces that will be green, permeable, and in line with Proximity. That is our flagship program. And so this is going to begin with the 20 public hectares, and the idea is to then expand it to the other 80. And I'm going to conclude soon. Second, to do with housing as well. What happens to our cities? So I don't have 1 square meter of new soil, of new land. All of our land is already built up. We don't have any blank slates. You know, there's public, but also all the private buildings, you know, with people living there, you know, it's privately owned, etc., so we cannot use that. But the project to transform cities through changes in land use, that's over, because the industrial land that I already have, I already need for the system. So this means that I need to be creative. How can I intensify the use of land in the city? Because the vacancy rate has increased, and also the number of people per household has been decreasing. And so we need more households for the same number of people. So either we subdivide what exists sort of almost surgically, or we need to intensify occupancy. But that's very difficult because proximity needs to be discussed with intensity and density in mind, because, you know, I don't want to be seen as like the evil person that wants to, you know, wants to shove more and more into one small space. The second option, the metropolitan areas around the world that were designed with cars in mind are beginning to expand to places that, or rather city centres, were not designed with cars in mind, those that have been around for a long time. But that's what we need. We need to get away from the idea of reducing commuting. What we need to do is foster intensity, foster proximity that we find in city centres to places that surround cities, to the metropolitan areas. And we need to start where we are, because what we need to do is intensify the use of spaces that, for the time being, have a sort of appearance of being proximity cities. But when we look at employment and housing, they are not, because there's not that critical mass there. And so I can't make more housing units if, you know, if I'm trying to expand Barcelona city centre beyond its border. The idea is to make green, decent, affordable housing outer in the cities and beyond as well.
Thank you, Maria. I told you she was brave. I really appreciate the fact that both you and Alexander spoke about a small scale and step by step, and then you took it to the large scale of the political challenges. Next, we have Reggie Ramos. She's Executive Director for Transportation for Massachusetts. And Reggie, you've been involved in transportation justice and bringing free bus service and accessibility to the people of Massachusetts. Please, 5 to 7 minutes, your presentation for us.
Thanks for the introduction, Martha. I will try my very best not to sell Boston to everyone. Thank you for this invitation to speak about Boston, a city I've grown to love and now call home. Boston is facing a shortage of affordable housing supply. I am sharing this challenge that we are facing because I think it exhibits sort of in very clear terms the importance of how where we live determine our life outcomes, and how existing public transit can be leveraged as a tool in unscrambling complex social problems. Boston's crisis has reached alarming levels. We conducted a poll last year, and 71% of the surveyed residents said that housing was a critical financial burden. And for that reason, many of them are considering leaving the state. Well, for other reasons, a lot of people are also leaving the states, but that's another discussion altogether. The problem, though, is not exclusive to Boston. This is a nationwide concern. Currently, the US is short of 3.2 million housing units. And in Massachusetts right now, we are short of 100,000. The housing problem, however, is nothing new. Since the 1920s, US federal rules on highways and housing have designed the separation of commercial and residential uses. It encouraged car culture and created suburban America. It also resulted in the segregation of people along racial and income lines. Previously, we've been very unsuccessful in addressing this challenge by developing what we call lifestyle centers in the peripheries, in isolated areas. Even though these developments were incentivized, they fell short of becoming neighborhoods designed around people. To get to the core of this problem, in 2021, Massachusetts passed the MBTA Communities Act. This fundamentally changes our land use policy and explicitly makes public transit the basis for the redrawing of our urban life. The MBTA is the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. It's the 5th largest transit agency in the United States. It serves about 830,000 riders in a day and serves about 177 towns and cities, which we call communities. The law that I'm talking about requires these 177 communities to establish multi-family zoning within about 800 meters or half a mile from a transit station with a targeted average gross density of approximately 15 housing units per half a hectare. For some cities all over the world, this measure might be commonplace, but this is not so in Boston or the United States. In the US, zoning for multifamily housing is not usual. For the most part, the standard has always been to only allow single-family homes in parcels of land, especially in residential areas. This practice protected the neighborhoods from change and reinforced the exclusivity of real estate. The MBTA Communities Act is so notable because it seeks to overturn a pattern of clustered prosperity. It is also very remarkable because it dismantles decades of segregation and car-centric policies. Of course, as expected, the passage of the law met a lot of challenges. Some of them went all the way to the Supreme Court. And our job as advocates was to fight that the law prevails. And it did. As of August 14, 2025, out of us 177 communities, only 15 communities are non-compliant. That is phenomenal for any US state to be able to do that. Now, what does this mean for these communities? These communities will forfeit, oh my God, everything's falling. Because I'm talking about the United States, in Paris. This means that they forfeit their right to state money. And they will have to raise their own property taxes in order to do their local infrastructure and transportation improvements. The passage of the law and overwhelming compliance of the local level has been due to the growing recognition of residents that of the merits of inclusionary zoning, diversity, and proximity. Another thing that has helped the passage of the law in Boston is our own history of proximities. And I guess this speaks to what Professor Moreno was talking about, ancestral intelligence. Greater Boston has historically been designed as a network of urban villages before they were tampered with by cars. This historical advantage helps today's Boston to aspire to become a 15-minute city with the right equitable public policies. This law is not just good housing policy. This law is good transportation and climate policy. By requiring these development districts to be in areas served by public transit, we are going to effectively reduce the number of car trips, and municipalities will be able to reduce parking requirements under the new zoning rule. It is not all sunshine. There have been squares that we have developed, Jackson Square, for instance, in Boston, that is very proximate to public transit and has an abundance of active transportation, biking, pedestrians. But we've seen a growing, disturbing rate of gentrification, and Latin residents have been forced out of their house due to displacement. And really, what we need to do in that regard is really embed displacement policies within these developments. While we have yet to see, the law is very much in its infancy. We have yet to see how the law produces actual affordable housing in connected neighborhoods. What we've seen is that actually communities are the ones that are saying, we want connected neighborhoods. And they are looking to government to have a bolder outlook in changing the status quo. So sometimes incremental policies are good. But really, most of the time, in our case in Boston, when inequity has lingered and it is much anchored on outdated policies, sometimes what we need is sweeping change so that there is a mandate and it sparks much needed reform so we can get to the future we want.
Thank you so much, Reggie, for connecting the dots between housing, transportation, lifestyle, and resilience. Next speaker is Sharon Hill. And Sharon, you lead Cities Lead at the United Nations Environment Program, and you manage aspects of sustainable urbanism, you build partners, and you look at circular economy, nature-based solutions, food systems, and integrated urban planning. All of those very, very important things. You've worked as a consultant on urban planning at the Asian Development Bank and other roles. Please share with us your 5 to 7 minute presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation, of course, and I'd just like to take this opportunity to say that I'm very grateful for the work of Mayor Hidalgo and her allies, including Monsieur Labas here, because I live in Paris. The UNEP, the UN Environment Program's headquarters is in Nairobi, but our team working on cities and regions is based in Paris, and so you have been very instrumental in making my life easier and making everything very, very accessible, so thank you for that. Let me start by just explaining why I'm here. For those who don't know the UN Environment Program, we are the UN agency that is tasked to worry about very big issues, about global environmental issues. So we are part of humanity's greatest successes, such as saving the ozone layer, so very, very big, and also the documenter of its biggest failures through the emissions gap report, for example, how we are not managing to keep to 1.5. We create and often host global agreements like the Convention on Biological Diversity. And right now, my colleagues are working really, really hard to ensure that the global community comes out with a plastics treaty. We then help make such action towards implementing these treaties and conventions a reality by supporting funds such as the Global Environment Facility. So this is the raison d'être of the UN Environment Program. So the question is, why am I here? Why is an organization so focused on global issues talking about proximity? Because we in UNEP know that global change can only happen when it's grounded in the local and granular. So action needs to happen at the global level. UNEP works, what we do in the local space is we work to shine a spotlight on those small but impactful entry points that truly make a difference at the global level. So in the case in this case today, together with Professor Carlos Moreno, Catherine, and the team of Charity, UNEP is highlighting the issue of food and proximity as a lever for climate action. So why are we talking about this? So when people think about reducing urban emissions, energy and transport usually come first. Food is rarely ever talked about, but food is one of the major levers. Food is the single biggest source of consumption. We all eat, and there's more and more of us every year. 13 to 20%, largely from diets rich in animal products. If we don't act, food-related emissions could increase by 38% by 2050. By shortening supply chains, sourcing from nearby farmers, creating local hubs, and redistributing food within neighborhoods, we reduce transport emissions, cut fossil fuel dependencies, and build resilience against climate shocks. I'm sure all of you, many of us, still recall how difficult it was to get our basic necessities, the food that we needed during the period of COVID. And we're bringing this back as an issue to discuss when we discuss resilience. So a resilient city is one where your next meal doesn't have to travel hundreds of kilometers. That is what we believe. We look to circular food systems to turn waste into climate solutions. So food waste is one of the biggest blind spots in cities. UNEP, I'd like to acknowledge my colleague here, Clementine O'Connor, who is the brains behind our food waste index report, has recorded that 1 billion tons of food is wasted every year. From households alone, more than 1 billion meals worth of edible food is thrown away every day. Can you imagine that? And we have people starving, but we're throwing away food. So recovering the food that still is good to eat, and France has been a big mover in this, Japan as well, and returning nutrients to soil, cities can cut methane emissions from landfills, promote food security, and close the loop between what they consume and what they regenerate. So one example of how local and very localized action can move a country is in Brazil. So during COVID-19, we worked with the Brazilian government to design very localized food systems. We created a module to help cities and subnational governments, regions in Brazil to revamp their food system given the food insecurity in the country at that time. And this has led to a feeding cities program, Brazil's Alimenta Cidades, and eventually to a law that we are very proud of because we're working closely with the Brazilian government in creating food hubs, connecting peri-urban farmers to markets, and reducing waste. So while it is true that we do need national government political will and action, it is also true that local leaders can push national governments to the direction that they want to happen. And this is what the Alimenta Cidades is about. It's building from the neighborhood up. So let me close, I'm within my 5 minutes. Let me close by going back to what Professor Moreno said about proximity and human dignity, including food in the conversation of proximity reminds us that our cities first rose around these very basics, around food, water. We all know there's a lot of architects and planners in this room, and this is what we learned in our studies. So this perspective, food, and proximity can help build resilience, advance climate mitigation, and restore the human dimension of our cities. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next but not least speaker is Mr. Andrea Gordini. He is director of Fondazione Transform Transport in Italy. Now let me tell you something about him. He is an environmental psychologist. He's not an architect, he's not a city planner, and no. He is also ambassador for the Network for Diversity in Transport in the European Commission. You have to tell me, but it says here that you're specialized in leveraging ICTs. What are ICTs?
It's like the, is it open? Yeah. Information communication technology. So it's the kind of the big data bubble.
Okay. And you work in user-centered approaches. Take it away. You have 5 to 7 minutes.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm pretty used to seeing people laughing when I say I'm an environmental psychologist, so no worries. So first, I'm pretty honored to be here, and I want to thank Professor Moreno, Catherine, and Chiara for inviting me and a colleague of mine to join this session and the conference. And lucky me, I'm the last one of the roundtable, so I can leverage on the speech of my colleagues, which was truly inspiring. Also, this morning's session was truly inspiring. And to me, what's crystal clear is like proximity could be the solution to respond to climate issues. So I would start from this as the very first conclusion of the conference. But the point now is how to start planning cities to reflect this methodological or this framework to be flexible and adaptable to many different local communities and contexts. We have been working about the concept of the 50-minute city since the last few years, since the pandemic, which was for everyone, I think, like the period when everyone realized the need of having a resilient neighborhood where to find in an accessible way the services we needed. And we recently developed an open source coding system to map the level of accessibility of the cities in terms of accessibility of services. And this tool was very recently published as open source for let everyone who is interested to map his own city, let's say, and the level of proximity of the city as a QGIS plugin. Then we start also thinking, what about the night cities? So the level of accessibility of services for the users of the city nighttime. Then we start also producing, let's say, slightly different studies, but everything was focused on the level of proximity of the cities. But then the second question is leveraging on the Young Girl keynote speech this morning, which was terrific, but truly inspiring to me. Supposing the city was properly planned and dense, so is it the goal to reach the destination in this short amount of time, or maybe it's more important to people to reach the point of interest is the services they needed in let's say, the quality of their experiences in doing so. So this is why we are now focusing on a more, let's say, broad framework which is related to walkability and cyclability, but also through the lens of the comfort or the safety, the perception of security, the level of attractiveness of the path. So this is what we call user experience mobility. And we did some studies supporting municipalities and mobility agency in the EU, for example, related to the thermal comfort of pedestrians, which is another becoming very classic example of very bad experience we have of our cities summertime. And this is about the safety of the elderly. So it's not about just the uncomfortable situation of us, but it's about the safety of people dying during like heat waves, heat islands in our cities. So the idea is now not to focus only on A to B and the density and the proximity, but also the perception of a very specific niche of people which has specific needs, specific expectations about the path, so the elderly. and then looking at nature-based solution as a very promising, let's say, way to combine proximity, sustainability, and resilience for addressing thermal comfort of the pedestrian as a way for a better planning of the cities. Then we also focus on air quality, which is a big issue. As an example of the city I come from, I'm from Milano, in the Lombardy region, which is very, let's say, very well known for the poor level of quality, not the city itself, but the region, the extended region. So we are now looking at the needs of children in the path from home to school, elementary school, and how to let them engage in finding solutions, so building sensors, ICT sensors, like in a very playful way to let them become nerds as we are. And so the idea is to combine the so-called big data, so for building the mapping of the city about the proximity services, we rely on Python or other coding system, OpenStreetMap data or Google Places, so it's about this kind of top-down approach from our desk, and then start talking to the people, so the small data. This bunch of children, students we are interviewing for the project we are running in Milan about air quality, they could bring us very small hooks to look in a very divergent way, resilient way, the problem with a different lens. Also focusing on another example on the perception of safety of women, which have been tackled this morning a couple of times. They need to, let's say, to look at the planning of the city, also considering gender inclusion, and being part of the network for diversity in transport for DG Move, it's clear that when it's about a proximity, when it's about of being resilient to climate issue, this is the very big occasion we have also to answer other problems which are related to the way we live our city on our daily life. So why not to consider a city to be more dense, but also more accessible for people with impermobility or for children, elderly, and for women. So this is the direction of us.
Thank you. I'm told that we just have 3 minutes, so let me try to wrap up, and I will have a quick question for everyone. But you only have 30 seconds to answer. I find it particularly interesting, the themes that you mentioned, the different scales, nature-based solutions going from the individual to the political realm. My question, final question, 30 seconds. Can we change the culture of the people who live in cities to help them help us make the changes? In the case of Osaka, we see that there's a reduction in car traffic. Is that a change in culture, or is that a change in politics? So how do we help people embrace the new realities that all of you experts are talking about? Let's start with Sharon. You have 30 seconds.
That didn't give me a lot of time to think about it. But maybe, I think, yes, it has to be both. The city structure needs to be changed as well as the attitude of people. And I think a lot of it has to do with messaging. So, for example, as I said, climate resilience is not only about infrastructure. COVID taught us that climate resilience is also about how can I put a healthy meal in front of me when a crisis happens. So maybe we need to reframe and communicate it that way. I'll end there.
Great. Mr. Tanakawa, may I ask you, you talk about that young people now are purchasing less cars. Is this a cultural change, or is this a change because of the political situation has encouraged a change? You have 30 seconds.
Je pense que c'est parce que nous avons travaillé pour les... I believe that's because we've worked for bus and tube networks that now cover the whole city, and that's really helped access 10-minute access by foot or by public transport, and that's really changed the image of the city so that people do not really think that they have to use their cars now to move around.
You talked about mapping and communicating through mapping, but do you see the need for a cultural change, and how can that be achieved if we hope that city residents will be able to embrace the new realities?
Thank you, Martha. Yes, I'm sure of that. I think there is one major challenge for proximity in the city for us is the huge impact of platform economy, which changed all the thing about proximity. Airbnb is destructing housing, Amazon is destructing shopping, so all the things we make to make proximity are going to be beat by e-commerce.
Thank you.
But I'm sure Carlos find a solution.
We hope so. Maria, would you like to add to that, please? Yeah.
Well, Alexander was pointing at we have to deal with contradictions. We are part of that contradictions. We think that, and I will be a little bit provocative, but we think sometimes, citizens think sometimes in my city that biking will be the solution. I just want to raise that if we need to change that culture, people need to understand that only together, and together meaning in proximity, in compactness, and that means in public transportation, in collective solutions, we will be able to move forward. Anything that it's a solution individual, I plan my own food, I bike individually, I have sell, energy for myself. Anyone that thinks that these single things will be the solution, that's what we really need to fight. That it's only in cities where we are together, close to each other, we have a chance to get something done.
Great, thank you. Andrea, you as a psychologist, how do we influence people, and how do we help them understand the messages, the policies, and change the culture?
Yeah, let's say, when about to nudge people to change their behavior is not so easy. I would say from a psychological point of view, as an individual, we are resilient when we recognize the crisis, so the stressors. So maybe first, public awareness is the first point. And then also considering a new promising research topic in the EU, which is transport poverty, is also about not to exclude people, let's say, to be part of the solution if they have a low income and they could not buy, let's say, electric car or any kind of sustainable mobility tool, for example, of the research topic with Duran. So let's say all together, also considering like a fair approach, addressing what we need from people to address the solution.
Thank you. And Reggie, you have the last 30 seconds, please.
I feel like I would be very remiss if I don't acknowledge sort of the changes that are happening in my state and in the United States for that matter. A lot of this contextual democratic backsliding is also being talked about in local communities through proxies, like, public transit can stand for more progressive reform. But I think what we need to do is, yes, culture change can definitely happen, but we need to investigate the why. Why are people dissatisfied with their quality of life? And start from there.
Thank you very much. Thank you, panelists. You've been wonderful. Now, the next moderator is Albert Yadro, Head of Policy of United Cities and Local Governments. Albert, are you here?